We'll watch that, guys, but we're. Okay, at 5:30, Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026, I will call to order the monthly meeting of the Planning Commission of the Sister Bay. Roll call.
Harp here.
Heidler here.
Bell here.
White here.
Arts here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Arndt, second by Heidler. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Approval of the meeting minutes from May 26th, 2026. Any additions, subtractions, deletions?
And one thing I noticed. On page 2. Line 17, we have just M Danhausen instead of Miles. Not a big thing. And isn't it spelled Housen?
Is that how it was presented in Zoom? Is that, I'm assuming that's where that came out of.
That is how it was presented in Zoom.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't think we actually want to correct that.
Yeah, no, okay.
On page 5, and this is really inconsequential, my name is spelled wrong.
Okay, so for packet 5 or, No.
Packet, or packet page, well, it says.
Oh, it is,
packet
I'm
toward
sorry.
the bottom,
okay,
but that was really. Sorry, found that I was looking.
motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Motion by Heidler, second by Hart. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, comments, correspondence, concerns from the public. Is there anyone out in the public that would like to speak? Would you guys like to speak? I don't think I'm gonna take public comment during the discussion item, but I don't know if there's anything you want to say if you just. Okay. All right. Okay, and nobody online? Yeah. Okay, on to discussion items. 5A, site plan review, Marina Building.
All right, so this is for the marina building that has currently been contracted to perform engineering services by MDT. The design of the building is substantially complete. The marina building is located within a P1 district. Included within the report includes some different criteria that are associated with the project. So the proposed height of the building does not exceed 35 feet. Regarding the setback requirements is that just wanted to make note that if we're looking at it in terms of the current code, that based off of the current placement of the building from the front setback over to the edge of the pavement, that it would not be the 50 feet part of it, but as noted within the first page of the site plan, that it actually, for the proposed building, does not actually go further than what the existing building is. Otherwise, there are no other concerns regarding the side setback or the rear setback. Then as part of this as well, everything as part of the building has been reviewed for architectural compliance and compatibility, and that there's not any significant issues that are identified as part of that. And then just again, just noting that in terms of the parking lot, there is not a significant change in terms of the layout of the proposed parking lot for the project, and that there might be, I believe, 1 or 2 spaces in terms of the new trash enclosure, that the parking would be reduced as a result of the proposed building. And then in terms of prior action, there was a courtesy review that was conducted on May 14th, and that those items were forwarded over to the architecture team, which was coordinated by Marina Manager Dave, and there was very slight modifications to the architectural design as a result. So with that, just wanted to get the thoughts from the Planning Commission as we review this, or anything regarding the site plan review or architecture. items. Then just on a side note, not necessarily related to the plan commission, but the intention for this project is then to have this ultimately be approved, whether or not it's conditional approval. And then this project would then move forward to the procurement phase where MDT, the contracted engineering firm, would then prepare the bidding documents associated with the project. Very shortly after approval, and then move forward to getting it out to bid.
Does it meet the ordinary high water mark setback? I couldn't really tell from the drawing that wasn't marked, and it does get closer to the water than it was before.
We have not been given that distance in any drawings. That's one of the questions that I had also. Dave has like assured us it does, but I've never seen a footage. And I do have that concern.
Yeah, so Dave did, so that one, he did reach out to the DNR, I know within some communication we've had regarding that for the high water mark. But that can be obtained.
Say we do have Dave online from the arena.
Dave, would you be able to answer any questions about your research that you had for the high water mark?
Yes, as far as the DNR goes at this point, they don't believe there's an issue with it. We've asked Stantec, as they're doing the civil engineering, to also take a look at the ordinary high water mark, and they are currently working on that. I think next week is when they're going to be done with that. They're waiting to get some information back from a TV. Well, they're working with the sewer and water department to look at the outfall pipe, and at the same time, they'll come back with the ordinary high water mark.
So he consulted with the DNR. It's not the official mark, but as terms of it, I guess they have the confirmation that it should not.
So it's still to be verified, but it's
Still being verified.
Yeah, I mean, well, and if we're looking, I mean, it's obviously not marked on here, but the building is 88 feet wide and it's the lengthiest part along the back. Away from the break wall, it looks like it's at least 50 to 60 feet. But we should get it marked on the plans officially.
Oh, well, what's the requirement, like 75? That's the number that's sticking out, but I just did a quick search in the code and it wasn't signed.
So it's calculated, it's in essentially the calculations is with the DNR in terms of what the high water mark.
No, I meant the distance requirement from it.
Okay, yes, let me quick just pull that up here, because I believe when we were researching this, it doesn't reference,
like our code show 50 feet.
Yeah.
but we'd have to reference what the point is for that.
So other than losing a couple parking spots, the parking lot is not gonna be changed.
No, it's essentially the portion that is to the left, is gonna be expanded slightly. It's gonna be removing, I believe 2 spaces was the count of what it was. And yeah, it's not substantially altering any other portion that, that's within the front or side areas.
Dave, are there thoughts of moving the additional staff parking to the public lot area? Or leaving the same number of visitor spots along the water, or what's your thinking there?
Okay, so we haven't had a great discussion about it yet, other than that if we need to, we'll just use the marina parking lot that's located half a block down. And obviously we'll take a look during the construction at all those 30-minute parking spots that are up along the brick wall and take a look at those too.
So the reason I ask about the altering the parking lot is I believe that there's a required setback of 75 feet in the village for parking spaces. That's something we changed about 5 years ago. So if we're not changing it, it's a pre-existing lot, but if there's modifications to it, then I'd have concerns. And the planning commission's logic when we put that in place was the water runoff. You know, like when you put a parking lot or pavement next to a body of water, everything on that pavement goes in body of water. So the other comment I have on here is, just looking for and that would be the rendering that takes out the dock. Please see if MDT can stop including that. I say that half kidding, half not. I mean, I just not, somebody's going to see that and not know the story behind it.
Also, just as a side note, somehow it didn't get to the updated version on here, but it won't be a shake siding anymore. It's gonna be a wide lap siding. White, and then there will be some shingle accents, but that's not.
So is there gonna be a plan to come back to us with all the colors and finishes and everything
I don't think so.
for approval? Oh, that's why I'm asking, because we don't have anything here to approve as a final approval.
Right.
But I also know you need something to go out and get bids and.
So that is the intention, not to, necessarily put it on a timeline, but ultimately in terms of what is available from the engineering. Just to keep on task with the procurement phase of the project, that's just the request is to review the site plan, review the architecture. It certainly can come back, but it needs to be enough that we could move forward with the procurement portion of the project.
Because I remember Bridget saying there was an intention to change some of that shake to horizontal siding, but we haven't seen any of that.
Right, it
And-
did come to us in an email, I don't know, there was, I think, some paperwork shuffle, and there's been so many versions, for some reason, the most updated version didn't end up in here, but that was really the only thing that was different, but, and I'm sure Dave has it.
So have there been any changes on the, I guess would be the east wall? And the reason I asked, there's a couple of spots that are pretty significant blank wall areas. And I realize part of this, like the second story, that east wall is the high back room. But when you look at the drawings, so the roadside, you've got windows just along what'll be the front of the building,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of wall there.
Right,
If I can interrupt, we did take that back to the architects, and at the last Marina meeting, which was a week ago, they did give us drawings that showed those updated drawings with to take care of your concern, Skip. But we saw them, the Marina packet was in there, but it did not get included in this packet. And that's probably my mistake, but I thought they were going to update it when they sent the whole packet.
And just kind of looking through things in general, and this comes from a personal experience side, when I'm out and traveling to other marinas, the exhaust fans in the men's and women's showers do not look really adequate to keep the humidity control down during peak usage. I tend to find that there's about a 3 hour window, 2 hour window, morning and evening, where the showers are just going constant. And the bathrooms get really humid. And what I see on the high back here is that there's no real vents near the shower. They're farther out into the general bathroom on the returns. So it might be something you want to take a look at more carefully when you get into that part of the bidding.
So I realize this may not exactly be part of planning commission, but I'll ask it anyway since I got you on there, Dave. When you take this out to bid, I'm hoping you're gonna include a solar element to it. just so we
Yes,
can put
actually.
numbers on it.
Yes, actually, we took it into account, Nate. On the second floor, they added an additional closet, a networking closet, an electrical closet to allow any cabling and stuff in there from any solar stuff that would be on the roof.
Perfect.
And on the public restroom side with your upgraded drawings, do they have any high windows or anything in there too? On the, the 1 story part that projects toward the street?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't have it in front of me.
And again, it just became one of those blank wall things that,
And we were trying to avoid that. We didn't want long spaces of blank walls. So,
I don't think there's windows on the back side, so as you're walking down the sidewalk, you would see kind of that longer back side, and you would see the 2 windows, but the short side that's facing the street doesn't currently have any on there.
because I know on the north side where it faces the park, it's hard to do much there because you've got all the utilities coming in there.
right. I can tell you that one thing that we altered was for the public restrooms. Currently, the female bathroom has a door on it that faces the road. We took that door out and moved it to the side where the unisex bathroom or family bathroom is and men's bathroom, and we put the women's bathroom door on that same side. Currently, one of the problems we have is on the women's bathroom, we can't see what's going on there. we oftentimes will see activity around the corner, but we can't see it. With the men's and with the family bathroom, that we can see. But we can't see that. So we asked them to take that door out and put it on the same side as the men's. So we
does
we
that-
had a better sight.
That put 5 doors in, or are we seeing a drawing with 4 there that's accurate?
No, this is accurate.
Right.
On here. He's just saying, one of the original plans had it on the outside.
Okay, so our,
Look at the public.
ours are already showing it moved on these, okay,
Yes.
okay.
All three of these bathrooms could be, I mean, this is constructed, so they're all winter, all season.
Yes, it would be winterized, and the idea was thinking that we would move down to, over winter, we would move down to just the family bathroom. Right.
Sure.
But it would be winterized, yes.
You mean heated, it would be heated in the winter, not winterized in the winter.
Yeah, I mean, it's capable of being open.
Or the
That's something
all
that,
season.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, season.
It would be all season, yeah.
And what is the real value of that sidewalk on the back side? Is it just to get to the meters and that, or?
Well, currently what's back there, it's a little blacktop sidewalk area, and they're just recognizing that it's there, it's gonna be torn up, so they would be replacing it.
Okay, I just wondered if there was really value in replacing it.
Well, we do have access back there, and that's why they were talking about doing it.
Okay,
It also serves another purpose, Skip, which I forgot, was the DNR also said if we're gonna do anything along that back, we need to maintain the existing route to the water on the backside. And so we're gonna take it from asphalt to concrete. So it is quote an actual walkway for the DNR purposes.
okay, even though there's an ice machine in the middle of it.
Yes, yeah, I understand.
So, Dave, I think at some point there will be at least a modest tower attached back there. That's just gonna go right through that sidewalk then for the base?
Yes, yes.
To your comment earlier, Skip, on that little broadside that faces the sidewalk.
On the
of
street
public
side.
Restrooms.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the plans and in the women's bathroom, it's really just a blank wall. It's not like one that the toilets are on or anything. I think we could pretty easily have them add.
Well,
two
that's why I
small
was
windows.
thinking a high window that, you know, you don't have to worry about people like looking in, you can have opaque glass in it. But it
Right.
also gives natural light, so if there's
Yeah. I
power
think we could
issues.
do windows or something in there and then we could put window boxes on it, so it's real pretty from the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Side also.
It would help to bring something to that side of the building.
No, I agree.
Does the parking between what's on site and what's on the little further away area meet the code for number of spots for the calculation?
Would have to think so based on, I mean, that's a pretty massive parking lot on the other side.
So it's not gonna be necessarily like it's, I mean, if you're looking at it, it wouldn't necessarily meet the intensification of use. It depends on your perspective on that.
Well, I'm just looking at the code and it says 1 space per 5 boat berths, plus 15 spaces per boat launch ramp, plus 1 space for 500 square feet of dry boat storage, plus 1 space per employee on the workship, with the largest number of employees, and 20% of those spaces have to be 9 by 35. So, for code purposes, are they allowed to count both the on-site and the further away to meet that requirement?
You mean the parking lot across the street?
The marina parking.
Yeah, the marina part.
I think they have.
I don't even know how many spots are back there.
Yeah,
A lot.
There's over 100 spots in the back.
I think that technically we'd have to have an agreement between, but I mean, like, it's the same party that owns it. I think it's. You know, we could make the marina have an agreement with itself to have those
Yeah,
spots.
I just wanted to make sure that that part was compliant with the code.
Yeah. I believe we've always treated that as parking that's on there. I mean, I know that we have something specifically about offsite parking, but I think the offsite parking was always, you had to have it. Really where that came out was at the Historical Society when it was shared parking. And that's when we said you actually have to have an agreement on.
Well, and the challenge with the marina for boat launches is you gotta have those 35-foot parking spots
Yeah,
and actually keep them just for people launching and not the general public using them, which has that been better, Dave, since you put the permit restrictions on more of the spots?
Yes, it definitely has. Yep. And then we also maintain for the boaters' use, all of them up along the water, on the water side, the dock side, those are all 30-minute parking spots, load, unload.
I don't think I've ever seen those full, all of them.
Along the water.
Yeah.
And
They're close, but
people tend to pay attention to the 30-minute most of the time,
yeah.
except at sunset.
They also they don't pay attention to the parking spaces either at sunset.
Well, that's
They go any which way.
Yeah, and
So for compliance with that, we're considering both parking lots meeting the need.
Yes.
yeah, I mean, the use is not changing. And then
Yeah, I just don't know when this part of the code got updated to know if something changed between then.
yeah, I don't know.
Good question, Gary. Okay,
So what kind of action are you looking from us right now, Ben?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, whether or not it's conditional, if there is some additional information needed. But ultimately, you'd be looking for, approval of the site plans to move forward. When we're talking about a commercial project, one thing that could occur is that we'd be looking at having, a development agreement to specify anything that'd be appropriate for this project. It's been pretty atypical that the village would have a development agreement for a project that would be itself, right? So we'd be imposing additional requirements as part of it. So really, we'd be looking at having the approval of the site plan unless there was an alternative action or reasons to specify specific requirements that would be needed as part of a development agreement.
I mean, the only one I have is the verification of the setback from the water. Beyond that, I don't have hard problem with it.
And it sounded like the conditional approval with the final siding choices and colors and things coming back to plan.
Yeah.
At some point.
yeah, that's really what you need is enough to go get it out the bid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I expect you're gonna end up with some value engineering at this point in the process. Since it's been so long.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to hopefully not make too many tough decisions. When prices start rolling.
Somebody like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan on the condition that the high water mark is called out and that the siding and color choices come back to plan at some point for approval.
Motion by White,
The materials and colors.
Materials.
I'll second that.
motion by White, second by Heather. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Go to.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Good job staying awake. 5B, site plan review, Purple Edition Chop.
All right, well, we have, let me just quick get this up here. Gonna scroll through the packet, pass all the architecture drawings here.
Page 3. I think.
There we go, all right. So as part of this, we received a conditional use permit application for a Chop Restaurant for pergolas that were proposed within the front of the principal building. Essentially, it was initially interpreted that this would be a conditional use permit for an accessory structure. It would be required to have a conditional use permit application as part of this if it's in the front yard. Essentially, it was reviewed from prior actions. Specifically, it was reviewed as part of the vestibule project that essentially that if it's considered a year-round attached structure to the principal structure, that ultimately it would be considered as part of the principal structure. So initially, the interpretation was it would be a conditional use based on prior action that was researched. It was indicated that it could be considered that it would be attached to the principal structure, and that it would then be considered a site plan review And this would essentially be a site plan approval that would be considered as part of this. So really, it's up to the Plans Commission interpretation about whether or not it would be considered a conditional use permit, considered an accessory structure, or whether or not it'd go with the prior interpretation that it would be considered a site plan review, since it would be somewhat attached to the principal structure there. So included as part of the application, it would be included as the proposed pergolas that would be attached to the building. And then ultimately, there would be some leeway on what there would be for the color, whether or not it's the color that was presented, or whether or not there would be a color that would match the structure. And if you did want to say anything as part of the application as well, we do have representatives available.
So why wouldn't it be just a conditional use permit as they applied? I know you referenced some past precedent, but looking at the code, to me, it looks like a straightforward conditional use permit.
That was my initial interpretation, but then again, it was the Plans Commission precedent in the past that if it was, attached year-round to the principal structure, it would be there, that it was considered at that time a
But I
site
think to
plan.
challenge that precedent a little bit, if that is the precedent, it should be codified, right? If that's what the way it'll be treated going forward.
So I guess it's the interpretation of what we're talking about in terms of whether or not it's considered an accessory structure or an attachment to the primary structure.
Where are you looking, Jerry? What,
I'll have to pull it back up. I was reading it earlier.
Well, just looking it up, are you guys, you have a dark gray one in here and a white one in the AI version? Which one were you looking at?
So we're actually a light gray, to match the awning and the vestibule that's there. So we feel like that's the best option to go with, since that white one will be moved. So the white one that's there now, it's just I'm learning AI, so I didn't really,
It only does start.
yes. And so at least that's what it's going to look like at the top.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be a light gray to match the awning and the vestibule. And I have pictures of the light gray.
Yeah, you already have that white one up there that has the shades that close and stuff, so that's just coming down and you're just intending to cover the whole space.
Yes.
Instead of just,
Yes.
yeah, okay. On here, I have for the B3 district, one of the things you have to include, there's a list of 4. And one of them, you can pick any of the 4, and one says building canopy, awning, pergola, or similar weather protection, a minimum of 4 feet in depth over a private sidewalk or pedestrian space. It's basically asking every B3 shop downtown to have somewhere where people can gather under the rain or whatever it is. It's basically requiring a place to gather, so I feel like
They
it
can
falls
gather,
right under
they-
that. You're like, they can sit right down
can gather
there. But that's the only reference to a pergola, so.
So generally, it would be considered, an incidental accessory structure that could be considered. Otherwise, the other interpretation is that be adding a new structure to the principal structure.
I mean, it is physically attached to it and permanent. So
Yeah.
it kind of goes that way. Don't take offense to this, please. I have a really hard time looking at AI generated pictures instead of actual drawings that give us dimensions and specifications when we're approving something. Because AI doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as what is physically produced. I don't know if other members of the commission feel that way, but I have a really hard time with that.
I would actually say, Skip, that's probably a generalization that's brought out by people. It takes multiple iterations. If you're going to get something that renders reasonably well, it takes a lot of asking and a lot of saying, okay, we'll do it this way, do it this way. And I mean, I know you're new to AI and it's quite a struggle. A good friend of mine referred to it as, it's like a friend. You've got to learn to trust it and you've got to learn how to work with it. So I think that I agree with what you're saying in this case. I just don't like that brush painted on all AI usage.
Okay,
Um,
that's fair, and that's why I asked not to anybody take offense, but when I look at this, I see one rendering where, you know, on the first floor, the column is double the dimension of what they are on the second floor, so it's disproportionate. Is the roof treatment gonna be similar to what you currently have on the cover of that's
No,
above?
actually,
Or are you
that's
looking
why
at-
we had to change it, so it's pretty similar to what the AI and the also picture that I sent of what it really is. Because the one that's there now has fabric and
Yeah.
the wind is just tearing it up.
Okay,
Like, that's one of the main reasons is because the umbrellas are flying away. And so the wind has also tore up the pergola that's existing there as well. And we're having a really hard time seating up there. I mean, even when I take salads, the leaves or the salad leaves are kind of blowing. And so we need something that's more heavy duty.
so is this a solid roof canopy?
Not completely, like you can actually take a crank and it tilts so that you can get some airflow
Oh,
in
so
there,
it's
but
louvers,
if it rains, I can close it and then still be able to see people.
okay, so they're louvers. Essentially.
Okay.
So I don't get it. If it's something that it's attached to the building and it's part of the permanent structure. So then it's not a conditional use, then it needs a different approval?
So the reason why it would be a conditional use is that if it's interpreted as an accessory structure, is that it's at the front of the building, it's at the, at the front, and then that within, the district would require a conditional use permit. So that was my initial interpretation when doing this, but I did take a peek at some of the different files associated with the site and saw that there was the vestibule project, where was the interpretation that if it's going to be, attached, to the principal structure, that essentially it would be considered and year round, and that it would be considered, an addition to the structure and would then only require a site plan review.
So if this is technically attached and it's gonna be there year round, this is a site plan review?
So by definition, in our definition sections, this fits permanent structure.
May I also?
Yes.
So the picture, again, I know it shouldn't have sent the AI, because it's kind of hurting me here, but the lower one, it was essentially going to be the top one, I would just move it down, but like I said, it's kind of destroyed, so in the meantime, I don't really want to do anything on the lower level. I'm gonna keep the umbrellas because those don't get lifted as much. Maybe in the future, I'll come back and ask about the pergola that's up top to move down. But I think for the time being, I would like to keep it to where I'm just asking for the top.
The second story.
Right, and then figure out if I do want to use the one that's up there, moving it down in the future. So I just, yeah.
So is the consensus that this is site plan review? Would we? So,
I think because it fits the definition of a permanent structure as opposed to an accessory structure.
And is that something that we can do on the spot? Like,
Yes.
it's not different paperwork.
I mean, it's just the interpretation of it is that initially, similarly to what it was for the vestibule project, that was the initial interpretation
Mhm.
that was had at that time, and then it was reviewed for plan commission, it was interpreted that it would be in addition to the structure, and then it was approved as part of the site plan instead. And then essentially it would just be, an approved site plan, and the permit would be issued accordingly, for just a standard zoning permit.
So you're looking for a motion to approve the site plan? I mean,
Yes, that was what, prove it as long as there's no conditions that would be imposed as part of it. If there's anything that's in terms of, the placement or layout, color placement of what we're talking about, those would be considerations to be made. But otherwise, if what is proposed is acceptable, it'd be, approving the site plan. And then ultimately that would result in approving the zoning permit and issuing a permit for the application.
so are you just asking for the second level here, or you're asking for both right now?
So there is,
Okay.
so there is existing, so there's one existing, and then essentially you'd be replacing that as the top.
Yes.
Okay,
And if in a month or so they wanted to put the ones down on the bottom, I mean, could we technically approve for both right now? And, you know, say you could add the ones on the ground floor at any time. So they don't have to come back.
So I mean, as part of this, it's just the addition of the two, I mean, one, and the pergolas that were existing were already approved as part of the site plan for the initial approval of the project, so that was actually included as part of when it was initially conceived as a project for approval. So it wouldn't require any additional approvals at this time necessarily, but if we wanted to clarify that as part of a motion, it certainly could be.
so you're saying even if we don't approve it, it wouldn't have to go
Yeah.
back to us anyway?
No, it wouldn't have to come back
Do
anyway.
we even have to make a motion then on the first part of it?
For the approval of the site plan,
Yeah, you're just saying, so you're saying as soon as we approve that site plan, it effectively do.
yes, essentially, yes, so it would not really, it wouldn't necessarily matter, but if it's a clarifying motion.
Okay,
Say, I'm sorry, did we get consensus that we're going to deal with this as a site plan review?
yes.
So, thank you.
So tell me if this is wrong. The motion to approve the shops site plan with the addition of the pergolas on the second floor as well as the first floor in the future.
Motion by White, second by Bell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. But that's okay. I don't think we have enough information here. I just think that's difficult. I'm not against the idea. I
Sure,
just think that the process hasn't been followed fully.
okay. Then we're on to 5C. Text amendment revision discussions.
So within previous meetings, there was some discussion about including amendments to the existing code. And that essentially there's three different areas that were reported to consider revisions to the code. And so one of them was for the B1 General Business District to include an automotive body and mechanical repair to be identified as a permitted use within the district. One was also the fee in lieu of parking evaluation to essentially reevaluate what the fee would be to include that as a codified framework rather than including it as part of the fee schedule. And then there's some different information in there about some possible alternatives that could be considered as part of that. And then there's also additional information regarding accessory dwelling units. So going from top to bottom, what's included as part of the packet is for the permitted use district. This was a request based on specific communication from the Plan Commission within a previous meeting. So the specific revisions have been identified as part of the code. And then that specific language, the specific letter from the Plan Commission was also included. The parking in lieu includes specific documentation as part of the code, a simplified version, which would essentially take the value of $1,000 with the addition of the CPI, and then there's also additional information about a more complex formula that could be utilized as part of it. And then just lastly, what's included as part of the packet would be for the accessory dwelling unit, which essentially a lot of the language has been included from Dane County. Dane County regulates accessory dwelling units as a county and a little bit less so in terms of the municipality. There's some sample language that was included as part of that. Not saying by any means that's the language that we'll go with, but just wanted to provide the Plan Commission with some sample language in terms of accessory dwelling units that could be utilized and modified in the future. And then I did include just a slide deck with some additional information just about accessory dwelling units as well. Something that's important to note, just for accessory dwelling units are not currently permitted within the village.
So I'd like to take these one at a time. The first one is the B1 use. Anybody have any objection, thoughts? additions on that? I mean, that seemed pretty straightforward to me.
Is there a reason it wasn't combined into just one line, automotive sales service, body repair, mechanical? Or is it to match the wording of the other section where it only calls out mechanical repair?
So just so you're saying why isn't it auto body?
Yeah, why not just combine it with one instead of having to change every other item? I know it's just a document and it'll do it, but
I guess I'm not following in terms of changing every other item. So I mean,
well,
this is
if
just
you
a.
change, you add a new top level item and then all the other ones iterate. So you add a new A, so A becomes B, B becomes C.
Oh, well, I mean, this is a red line version, so this is just included, so it's within,
Alphabetical.
so it's within alphabetical orders, that's just why it was put in. In that space, and then it was a red line version, so it just shows what the changes are.
Okay,
But you're saying instead of saying automotive body and mechanical repair, and then B, the auto sales and service,
Yeah, why
combine
not
those
just
as
two-
one.
Well,
thing.
by definition, they're two different things.
They're different types of business.
because of the verbiage.
So as part of the letter, that's actually kind of the point of it as well, is that essentially it's considered two different things and that it's permitted.
And it matches the verbiage of the B3 section, so that's why it's done like that.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't quite following part of it, but yeah, so essentially it's not including or modifying because it's by definition a different thing. And that's why we're including the specific permitted use because it's a different definition.
Because it was called out differently, B3.
Yes.
You ready for comments, Nate?
Yes. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this because I recognize that there's a very definite need for service locally for people to receive. As I dug further into it and looked even at what Liberty Grove does and their restrictions on it, it brought up, I think, a lot of the same concerns I have. It's a use that really, I think, fits into an industrial park type setting, which we don't have. There's a risk of, noise involved. You've got vehicles that are somehow gonna have to be stored until they're fixed, whatever the backlog might end up being. You've got potential for, aside from noise, a lot more dust and volatiles being used, as well as liquids that have to be contained. So I see a lot of business activity that doesn't seem to fit well right up against the rest of what our B1 district is. And when you look through the list of permitted uses and accessory uses, none of them are ones that are noisy or, that visibly disruptive. And there's so many spots in our B1 district that back right up against residential. I just really have a hard time seeing how it fits.
But do you think it would be a bigger concern than like a gas station or commercial laundries, which are gonna also have a lot of cars in and out, they have volatile chemicals?
Commercial laundry, I could have some of the similar effects. Gas stations, I mean, we already have those. And I have to admit, I look at these codes, I'm newer to them, and it seems like a lot of parts are there because a business was currently there. But you wouldn't necessarily put them in if you were starting with a blank slate.
Yeah, to me, when I look at the other ones, I don't see this as too much of a divergence from some of the other stuff that's there.
It would take a big enough piece of land that, because we try not to have excessive parking in the front. So that means everything's got to be around back.
I mean, it would take a big spot.
It would. And I guess, I try to put myself in the spot, if I lived in one of those residential areas right up against the B1, would I want that in my backyard?
But it is zone B1, so it could have a gas station or a laundry or.
It could, we already have those
Utility
there.
facility or any of these other big things that are listed there.
If we had figured out a way to work around all those things, then I think it's okay. But it would have to be done in a very careful way to make it fit into a community that really we walk the line between year-round residents and tourism.
So when we looked at all the uses, and this was probably. Mary Kay Shumway was on planning commission, so it was probably 8 years ago. Some of the uses are just because you don't imagine, you don't think of a use. The other thing is if you can't say, no, we don't want this use in the village. It's gotta have some place for it legally, correct then?
Yes, I mean, as long as it's, yeah, as long as it's operating within the uses that are defined from land use perspective, yes.
I mean, you can't say. There, you can't say that you just don't want something in the village, and
Well, and this is what I said by figuring out how to work around all these things to make it compatible.
I see, I guess with the residential point, that particular lot, I get that. I would
I'm
also.
not picking any one lot.
No, I'm-
I just, much of our B1 has residential in a close proximity.
Sure, the B1 has been B1 as long as that residence has been there, so I don't wanna say I don't have any sympathy for somebody that has that use there, and we need to be mindful of those uses, but when they got that property, it was a B1 lot next to it. In that area in particular. So I mean, like, there was always going to be a commercial use there eventually. There have been potential commercial uses there that were dissuaded from going there by public opinion. It wasn't the plan commission that stopped that, the Dollar General there. It was public opinion that did
And
that.
I'm not talking just on that particular
Sure.
lot. I'm thinking on 57 or on 42.
I'm
I mean,
thinking,
that's our B1 district.
it's the highway corridor there.
Yeah.
As far as mitigation would go, I mean, it's going to have. There's going to be some requirements because you're adjoining residential. I mean, there's some of the setbacks in that are going to be set by the more restricted district.
Right.
On that part. As far as noise, I mean, I understand that it can make some noise. I mean, all these uses, if you go look across the road. And if you can hear Johnson's Park a long ways away as is. I don't think it's gonna make as much noise as that, but now that doesn't mean you wanna add an additional lot there.
I'm just expressing the concerns I have, and I think these are things that, doing it, we would want to make sure we figure out how to address.
I think that there could be some sort of. A couple different ways you could deal with the acoustics. You're not gonna make it silent. But if you put some sort of fencing up, you can drastically reduce.
Well,
the
the
amount
work
of-
has to be done inside, not outside. I mean, things like that help.
Yeah,
But I did find it interesting that Liberty Grove really has prohibited it unless you're on a 10-acre lot living with your business. That's the only way it's allowed.
sure. And then the irony of that is where you see it.
I know,
How many
I know.
houses are right next to that on that particular
I know.
10-acre lot? I don't know that did exactly what they wanted to do.
So
Yeah.
can I use an example? So we own the commercial laundromat up by the gas station. Right now, we have a tenant leaving, it was Eagle Mechanical, and they did like cut pipe and all sorts of things in there. We had never had a noise complaint before. But I can see how if you're working on a vehicle, okay, I'm just gonna ask you, if you're working on a vehicle, would you plan to have, I mean, if you were in a space like that, would you plan to have the doors open while you're doing that, or would you keep them closed? To keep the sound down a little bit?
Doors can be closed.
Okay, and then what do you do with all of the cars that are being worked on? I mean, would assume you would be shooting for a little larger lot so that they could be, that was my only other real concern, like, obviously. If you're doing painting and stuff, there's requirements of that business. To like, keep that enclosed and not let paint fumes out and all the different things, but my big concern was. If you're driving on Washington Island down Main Street, you know what I'm talking about? And there's the auto body, and there's like all of the cars that need to be worked on are all like sitting alongside the road. That's what I think we don't want that. But I love the idea of having an auto body shop nearby,
So
right? Like, how do we make sure that you don't have the cars, that you don't have 10 or 12 cars sitting there waiting for service?
I think we should remember that there was, Sister Bay Automotive was on the north end of Sister Bay for a very long time. and I never recall any complaints about that.
That's why that's in the list of uses, I think.
Oh. Mhm.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it personally, as long as there isn't.
It's I say if we can mitigate these concerns, then
So would you be proposing as part of that to have a special standard uses list within that district? So just in anything, just clarifying anything in terms of specific requirements for
for the B1 district.
the B1 district to have the use be there? Like, is there anything specific? I mean, it can be workshopped as part of this, not expecting it to be one thing, but in terms of, you know, additional language that'd be required as part of, you brought up Liberty Grove. You know, more than likely, there's other, you know, standards out there that would be applied as part of it, to the specific district.
Well, what type of time frame are you looking for working? Are they gonna be working at night, changing tires, and you hear all those noises when you're changing tires, and, I mean, you can hear that anywhere, but if we can set a time frame that it cannot be operating, it's gonna be operating during the day, but
We already have hours for noise.
I was gonna say, I don't think it necessarily would need to be called out for the special standard. It would be, you know, applying for anything, for any, you know.
so that
nuisance
would
as
fall
part of
under
it.
the standard noise.
yeah,
Yes,
the nuisance.
yep, that would be under the nuisance ordinance as part of it.
And the 10 PM and the 75 dBA at the lot line.
Yeah. So I guess what I'd say for that is, can you come back with some ideas, Ben, for the next time? Because we're gonna have a couple goes at this.
Yeah,
Um,
but the direction would be to ultimately have some proposed language, you know, as a special standard use within the district to.
Yeah, just to help mitigate some of those concerns.
Yeah, I mean. So we're saying yes to having an auto body repair shop in the B1 district with certain conditions. We just don't know what the conditions quite are yet. Is that? what
Well,
we're
and those
saying?
conditions really apply to the district, not just to the auto body.
Right, true. Yeah, so to any business in B1.
In 40311, I mean, there's specific stuff for motor vehicle repair maintenance, 4 spaces of parking for indoor service bay, 1 space for an employee. So would it be a modification of that then? Because it kind of seems like this is already
Page right here.
codified. 66, 403.
Well, part of it, I'm just gonna be blunt, is how you make it not look like a junkyard while the cars are waiting to be fixed. But I'm not trying to be,
No, there's your big.
yeah, Mark.
I mean, my
Also, your name and address.
hardest part, I might be paying for this thing. We'll see how it goes with the bank and all, but, yeah, we're already expecting a total review of conditions. I mean, this is a conditional use that we'll be entering in when we do this. We're uniquely aware of that. The architect has scoured the code for all the things we'll be aware of. I mean, we have to be paved, so we're not gonna be having dust. That's part of, one of the things we have those, like you mentioned, we have all those different numbers per bay is in there already. We'll be at that or more. We'll have all the buffers in the back, because I'm uniquely aware, I don't want the complaints as much as anybody else. So the buffer's already there. There is a nice, I hope you guys don't make us go into that. We would love to be closer to the highway. So we're definitely, is definitely not noisier than the go-karts at any given time, and they're at night, you know, so they're around. We will never be working late evenings. We have to finish something up early evening, but we'll comply with whatever hours we're supposed to. So we're expecting a ton of conditions for our specific use, but I understand you're also talking about the B1 as a whole, but our use will welcome them because we want to be part of the community, not just shoehorn ourselves in here. So
are you looking at just one specific property or are you considering?
yeah, that's the one we ever am. We're still negotiating with Stoyan and owner, so we're not done yet, but that's our best place, I think, for what we want to accomplish is that we want increased visibility from where we are now, which is out in the field. And we're planning it to be 3 days for a little bit of growth, you know, but just a little bit. So yeah, that's a good spot for this, I think, with the eyeballs on it, and I think that's the only available space right now to put it in, so that's for sale. They don't wanna. The other one would be the one on the corner by the daycare, but they're only doing a build to suit, and we're not interested in that.
Page 78O is where it talks about the parking for that.
Well, I think it would be nice to have something nearby.
Yeah, we'll be the only one standing in a few years. We'll be it. When Chris goes out of business, cause he's older, we'll be the only one up here.
Right,
Yeah.
I mean, the closest other one is what, Sturgeon Bay or in
Key
Famous
House.
Harbor?
You know, so he'll be going out eventually way before our day, so. And within a handful of years, we'll be the only ones dumb enough to do this.
We're awesome enough to do this.
It's a lot of money,
Look at it.
it's a lot of money to put into something to fix cars, but we're gonna try it.
Well, people are never gonna not need their cars fixed.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, yeah,
But like from a planning commission standpoint, we just wanna look at the code and what it says and if we need to. Adjust it to address anything, and it seems to me like unless we disagree with what's in the code. It would cover the concerns about noise, parking, those kind of things. Since they're already defined.
Yeah, it depends if there's anything in terms of school reading or any other requirements that are specific, you know, to that use as part of it. That would need to be defined.
Well, like I say, I mean, I think we have you bring that back to us, Ben, come up
Yeah.
with some options. Skip, if you have any particular concern, shoot them to Ben and we can get it.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good to have just a summary specific to that business type of the different things,
Mhm.
because otherwise it is a lot of like. Bouncing into different spots
Yeah.
to figure out.
Well, and it
what all
does
applies.
become a permitted use or conditional use, and so that, you know.
And a conditional use is not what it used to be. It is far more straight. It's far simpler, much lower than it once was. I don't know how anybody else feels, but I don't think I want this in B3.
No.
So I'm good with B1. I don't think it makes sense in B3.
I agree with you there.
Okay.
Move from B3.
Is it in B3 now, right?
Used,
It's technically in there,
no, but there used to be one in B3.
no,
but in the code, it's not in B3.
yeah, it is,
It is in
it's
B3.
allowed. in
Oh, that's what that, can we remove that?
That's what.
Yep.
I think that if we're gonna, let's pull gasoline stations out too. I mean, there's,
Yeah, there's only one that's grandfathered in.
nobody is gonna try and put a gas station there, but whether they want to or not, I don't think that's a good use of it.
I don't know that I would pull it out though, because of what, okay, so say somebody buys Berto's down the road, it is very handy to have it there for the boat rentals and everything. And for, I just think if they would need to rebuild that building for any reason, they wouldn't be allowed to then.
I would argue that the public safety aspect of that with the traffic flow on that corner. That is, I don't think that anywhere in the B3 district, I think.
Pulling in and out, there's
Agenda
a.
item that should maybe go
Yeah.
for a future agenda.
Yeah,
Thank you, Gary.
all right. So then we had the parking, and I came up with a lot of the text on this one.
So do you need any sort of motion there, or is it consensus that Ben just evaluates the other uses in that area?
I think we got consensus on those.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, if we're considering it, we're essentially workshopping, you know, some different updates as part of the text amendment, and you know, ultimately. When there is a final version of however long the workshop occurs, then there'd be a recommendation, you know, to put it to public hearing. As part of it.
Okay,
So we'll come back, so I'm sorry, so the next plan commission will just review the language pertaining to adding that to the B1 district.
right.
And if it flies with everybody, then we send it to the board for public hearing notice.
We do the public
We
hearing
do the public hearing, then it goes to the board.
after the public hearing. So we've got- It's a little bit,
Couple steps.
Yeah, there's a few more steps. I mean, if everything goes very smoothly and it just rolls, we're probably in September. It just takes the timing on the public hearing. Sarah can tell you about that. You have to hit it in a certain cadence, and if the meetings aren't right that month, you may be a full, month and a half, 2 months out, 2 meetings out. But that's why we're also looking at doing a couple text amendments, because having a
As
couple.
long as you're doing it once, do the public meeting once.
Do them all
and
together.
home.
Yeah. So then the fee in lieu of parking. This is something that that we have utilized. I don't know that $1,000 makes sense moving forward. I think that having a static number like that can be problematic as we hit at parks with the benches. We were charging the same thing for, I think, 12 years.
I think it was 19, wasn't 2007, anyways, a
A
long time.
long time, yeah, a substantial amount of time. So I think it's something that we shouldn't have stay there, and I also think we should give the person who's paying for the fee in lieu of parking some stability on that to say, this isn't going to get changed by a future board. If you've agreed to pay for 10 spaces, there's a formula, there's some predictability. It's not gonna be flat, but it's going to be going up at a set rate that's tied to some other larger number, some sort of CPI.
I really like the concept of having it as a formula that is not at the whim of boards and commissions.
Yes, there's a guy who worked in the railroads in the 19th century who I refer to, and I've told Ben about this. Phineas Gage. He had a steel rod shoot through his head, became a completely different person about that. I presume that about myself and all boards moving forward, that, anyway, we could all have a steel rod shot through our head and we're gonna totally change temperaments and radically change how we operate. But I think that we need that certainty moving forward. Now, I will tell you the spreadsheet, I threw some numbers in there. I think that I was looking for a way to say, this is how we come up with it, but those numbers weren't. Those were my rough ideas
They
on
need
there.
verified.
Yeah, they need to be verified.
So on 57, that's not, because
So
up top it
close.
says 900 is the base price, and in this worksheet it says it's 2,800, and to me, that's a huge number.
Well, I'm saying we come up with the
formula.
calculation, and then we see what that number is. We base it on there. I mean, I do think that we should look at having it be the capital cost, amortization, looking at that. And I think you also have to discount that because there is a certain value of owning a parking spot versus using it. So it's actually owning it is worth a little bit more, but we can figure out what those inputs are, Bridget, and then come up with what that number should be.
So what was the thinking behind excluding B2 as a whole district and just going on 500 feet into it? Does that cover most of the current businesses that are in it, or?
So I was just focusing on B3 and looking at a 500-foot buffer on there. Most of it is gonna cover B2. You could cover B2 in there. I mean, B2 is a very. It's an afterthought district.
I know, we ran into it though at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Where this was an issue, and we have a couple of other businesses within that district.
I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it. I think where it may not make as much sense as out in B1 where you don't have the density.
I think it makes more sense because you don't have the option to put parking in
You mean B2 and
in B2.
Yeah. Sure.
I think B2 and 3 are
B2
where
and
it's
right.
most appropriate.
I mean, the B2's footprint is awful small, so it's probably largely covered by that 500-foot buffer, but I wouldn't see why you wouldn't just put that on there and then.
That's why I'm saying just put them both in instead of doing 500 feet into it, just leave it as B2 and B3.
Okay,
Yeah, otherwise somebody's gonna get a tape measure out and be like, I don't know, half my property is not within the 500 feet.
sure.
And what was the thinking? So going into, I'm sorry, you ready for comments or?
Yeah, oh, yeah, no.
Okay. So in the list of potential uses for the revenue, why road and alley maintenance?
I mean, that was honestly, I came up with this on a couple of there's some other parking benefit districts and I pulled some of it from that.
Okay.
So that's where, this is not a unique to us sort of. Thing. I've dealt at a number of conferences where people have advocated for parking benefit districts. and then fee in lieu of parking. So that was captured up by that.
Okay, cause it just seemed like, yeah, there's gonna be a limited pool of revenue, we should keep it focused on. Things related to the parking and pedestrian as opposed to. Keeping it from out of the general fund is great. But roads and alleys kind of seem like it was part of it.
Well, I think I know where the alley came into, where I was thinking about it is by the parking lot next to, across from the beach. There's
Right.
actually kind of an
Oh, I know,
alley
it's a-
in there that
yeah.
goes back behind there, and I could actually have seen that, cause that's the one place in the village we have something that's approximating an alley, so. I actually think that we have enough things that we pay for parking wise that this is going to get eaten up pretty quick.
I agree, that's why I was paring
Sure.
it down a little bit.
But I also put this in here as a starting point, not as an end destination.
That's why I'm at. And I don't know if this could really happen or not. Let's page 53. Was the 5-year review. What would happen if the actual adjusted rate at that 5-year period was lower than what the other rates were? Why would we? I don't see it happening unless there's a really bad recession for a long period of time, but
I mean,
it's not addressed.
What if it goes down?
If values went down, yeah.
It would never go down. It would stay flat. It would never actually go down.
Okay. On the grandfather part. Where the grandfather ones would end up being higher than the ones that were flat. After a period of time. But you're saying if it doesn't go down, it doesn't,
That's how
okay.
I would see it.
And why exclude motel and hotel parking?
Because because of the actual dealings I've had with motel, hotel parking, and you need to delineate space for motel, hotel.
So what you're saying is they have to provide their own spaces, they can't participate. Or,
We'd have to have it participate differently, because you'd actually, instead of saying you're paying for this parking pool, you'd actually have to say room 6 has got this spot here. Which would be a little bit different than saying you're part of the pool, people are gonna park here, walk here, go there. Where you'd actually have to delineate it, so that's why, I'm not saying it couldn't be part of it, but you'd have to treat it differently.
Well, and a large part of the parking disappears during the use of a motel, hotel. Cause a lot of our spots are no overnight, so all of a sudden that pool gets dried up with them. If they don't have their own spot.
Yeah.
And in the code, it says, I'm pretty sure it says you can't use fee in lieu of parking for condos. But any type of home, motel.
right,
motel.
residential.
Right, you have to have a space set aside for the people who are staying there.
Yeah.
I'm almost confident.
No, but it was used. In the B3 district for a multi-use building, where part of it was Airbnb.
What, the little corner one where they only have one? Was that like the exception to the rule?
They also had the spot they needed for the
They had
residential.
some spots, but not enough for the full use.
Right.
So,
They just want it, yeah.
so I believe that actually came up when we talked about it. Well, you were here for that.
Yeah,
So we actually, I think that we said, okay, you have to have that for the residential unit.
So yes, that is included. Let's see, I'm seeing some language within the B3 district. That's calling out some of the different language that we're talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna say. The parking space is required for motels, hotels, all types of condominiums and accessory residential uses must be provided on site, and no fee in lieu of creating spaces will be allowed. So if you're gonna put hotels in those, I mean, I think you should just copy and paste that line right into this fee in lieu. part.
Well, it's already in the other section, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Who's
put it
gonna
in
make
the-
So I guess I'd tell you, that's how you get some really, so what happens is, and we've seen this happen, you put it in there twice. You update it once,
Ugh.
but you've got it copied in another location, and now you've got this other bit of code in there. That you're like, where did this come from? And that's happened more than one time.
But it's easy to put a reference, you know, 50 whatever,
Yes.
subsection 3, and then it's covered.
Yes, the references are, yes, very much so.
And how do we deal with those that are currently involved in the program?
We would, I think you'd have to give them the option to keep going as they are. I mean, certainly for the year. But, and I don't.
Do we
think there's-
just do it as a prior to date and it's,
Prior to date, but then also give people the option to opt into the new system. I mean, I don't.
well, it's only gonna go up in price, however they opt in.
Well, I was gonna say, just in terms of, you'd have to review the language for each one of the different, approvals as part of it to see if there was anything that was conditional as part of it. I do think that it is good that this specifically calls out that it be part of the agreement and there'd be some type of worksheet and calculation that could be, proposed as part of it. So it shows what it would be, you know, for anyone going into this, into the future, projecting out, obviously not knowing what the CPM would be for each year. But just having that agreement in place, whereas right now, you know, it's just imposed, it's just invoice each year. So to answer the question, though, I'd have to double check the language of the approval, to see what that specifically says.
Well, the other thing is it's according to the fee schedule right now, so there's no certainty about what the board's gonna do next year. So
Okay,
I would think we'd probably wanna have this updated periodically to match on the fee schedule, so effectively everybody participating in this. But. I mean, that would be the reason to say, no, we wanna switch over to the new system where we have more predictability.
do they currently have to respond to an increase in fee? If they've been involved in the program,
I mean, it would be according to the fee schedule, so every
That's
time
not-
the board,
but I mean, currently, if the fees went up next year, they have to pay that, okay?
Right.
Okay,
I mean, I don't think that's stated other than to say that it's coming off the fee schedule, but.
Well, the fee schedule, yeah, is referenced as part of the existing code.
okay,
So are you talking like you're gonna give two options to people that have one option already and then another option?
No, I think it's just about making sure that what was approved, what is the right mechanism for getting them onto the new program. I just want to make sure in terms of what the approval was, that might even require just, you know, brief interaction with Randy to just confirm.
I'm just confused with this because I didn't agree last month with the fee in lieu of parking for lure when a block down. It's a different story. So are they all gonna be on the same level at what you're talking about here with changing the fee schedule and the percentage and all the money that they have to pay? Or is it gonna be just a couple places that are gonna have to pay and the rest of them are all grandfathered in or something, even though they've all been there?
I would just, like I said, I would just want to get a legal interpretation as part of it. More than likely, they would need to opt in, but I think it just would depend on.
But if they don't opt in, what are they gonna be paying?
That's what I mean, is that I would want to confirm with Randy to just be sure based on the approval that it was at that time. That moving them to this new agreement, that there wouldn't be any concern.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the existing businesses that don't have any fee in lieu of anything, that they
Right.
were just pre-existing uses. That would be a question for Randy. I don't think that we're going to be able to impose fees on those folks. But however, what it does do is it makes it more predictable for the next person that wants to come along and say, hey, I want to do this. Or if somebody comes into Wild Tomato and says, I want to change some use here.
Yeah, change of use, they fall into.
Yeah, that's what.
And then I understand, but does, as an example, Wild Tomato do anything for parking as far as fee in lieu of parking?
They don't have any, no, there is no.
Because there was no agreement when they got their permits for use. So if they made a change, I think they'd say. Anybody who makes a change that requires a permit would end up on the new.
They'd have,
Maybe an evaluation of parking, whether or not it's intensification of use or adding an addition. You know, it'd be reevaluated for the site. For the
See,
site.
I don't think that everybody's on the same playing level. Where, well, no, they don't have fee in lieu, and this guy's gonna have to pay $4,000 a year to have fee in lieu, and it's gonna go into a fund where someday when we provide parking, which we don't have any place to provide parking, so I don't understand.
Well, we're about to spend a whole lot of money where the village offices are to make more parking if,
Well, I mean, that's
That's
just
the route they
like
go.
a fraction of what we really need.
irregardless of number, that's where the money would be spent is to support something like that. What we've received, doesn't come close to what we need there.
Oh, I guess I would tell you, you're never gonna satiate parking and more parking. The concept here is to let the downtown develop further. As people want to do more things without compelling them to put in more pavement. And adding more parking lots destroys your downtown.
And in the same respect, then you tell them you've gotta pay fee in lieu. So when we do provide more parking, which we don't wanna provide because we don't have a parking problem, but we do have a parking problem. It
We do have parking expenses. We have definite expenses that come with parking that we're paying right now.
so does this fund help offset those fees
Yes,
to maintain like the parking lot by the beach?
yes.
Okay. I mean, that's the only public one that I know of that is close enough for anybody to go to.
Well, there's I mean, all of the parking at the beach, the actual beach parking. That's there. You've also
A
got,
lot behind it.
you know, the lot,
Yeah.
a lot across the street. You'll see something at the new admin building and there's also. I still think, we'll see if we ever get there. I think that there's enough room to put angled parking across the street from that, the admin building. But that's gonna take a wetland delineation and a lot of work to get that done. But there's still a lot of expenses that we have for the existing parking that we've got. I
We are
don't know.
expanding parking in that area.
Yeah.
With the complete redo of the.
Yeah, I mean, we chose to tear down a building and put more parking there. It's
So
gonna cost some money.
what is the expectation of a date to start that?
Start which,
For doing the Mill Road thing, taking down the admin building, putting in new parking in the next 2 years?
it's going to take how long it takes. It's probably gonna be 1 to 3 years from there, but that's a guess at this point. There's a lot of moving parts that have to happen and there's a lot of approvals and a lot of processes gotta go.
I will say, if you're trying to, if your goal is to keep people from putting in more parking lot to spread out business to business. If I'm putting in a business and I can choose whether to do, if I've got the space and I'm like, okay, I need 4 extra spaces. If I can choose to just pay them 4 extra spaces versus pay a fee that's gonna increase every single year indefinitely,
Right,
I'm gonna put in the 4 extra spaces.
sure.
I would
But you'll have
always
that
choose-
option because your lot's gonna be big enough.
Right, but I'm saying if your goal is to keep people from paving in between businesses, if they're able to, that's not gonna, this is
Well-
not gonna fix that.
Well, business also has to look and say, if my revenue per square foot in my business is generating X amount, I can do
They
more
can make
doing
the
that
building bigger.
than putting in parking
Yeah.
spots. And I cover the cost of a fee and lose, so I mean, they become businesses.
Right, yeah, sure.
The one thing I had failed to recognize was that, yes, the village board does have the ability to affect that rate that they're currently paying now, so. To be into a set program, that probably makes sense for a lot of the grandfathered.
Yeah. There also may be something on some of those things that were built back in that time. That may not preclude them from having a fee in lieu of parking, depending on how the development agreement was working. So we can certainly look at that and see if that's applicable. Cause I recall some of those discussions happening, but,
I mean, I think it was you was saying at a previous meeting that there was a time when the village needed businesses down there, so.
and if
Taxing them with parking was not gonna attract them, so.
And if we, I mean, the other thing I look at doing is also reducing the number of parking requirements. I mean, just not requiring as much parking. I think that. To your point, Bridget, if if the number is really big, yeah, it's just gonna be, people say, yeah, I'll just pay I don't care about 3 times, I'll do this one time. If we keep it reasonable, the economics are generally gonna work out against parking, like Skip's saying.
Mhm.
So it also depends on what that rate is. but I also think our parking requirements are too high for a lot of uses, especially in the B3. This is, I'm trying to find a way and an option that other places have used to mitigate some of the expenses that we face parking wise.
It's really about balancing.
Yeah.
That's our,
So how do we feel about the formula on page 57, ignoring the numbers that are in there?
I like 52 better because it ended up closer to the number that we're charging now.
Well, I mean, that's, I would actually say if you put get the number in the formula, you change it around, you can get that number. I mean, you increase the years you're amortizing it on, you're gonna get the
Yeah.
number down. I guess I'd really say, is there any other expenses in there that we should have put in, or? And I mean, like the assessed value per square foot was literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, I mean,
I saw the note next to it, I'm like, seriously, is that really the?
no, so there's definitely some debate on that and saying what that number is, because that number also varies pretty heavily. Even in the B3 district.
Well, and there's a big difference between, so the parking lot across from the beach, that's obviously a very valuable piece of land. And that I could see how those parking spaces will be worth more for sure. But if you're just talking about adding parking spaces to a street that are, like on Mill Road on the way up here, there's the spaces all the way down the side. So spaces on an existing road, to me, that's not.
I
The
would just look,
output of money was, obviously the street's a little wider, but it's not even the same.
I would just say, what's the acquisition cost for, I mean, like, figuring out what. Not to put you on the spot, what was your cost per foot? I mean, that's the number I'm looking at there, is just looking at some recent land transactions, because you can see them, they're posted, and looking what that number is. So not just kind of, I like this number or not, but actually basing it on something concrete.
on current sales.
Good question.
And it'd be
I think
much
I'm scared.
difficult if you talk to the assessor, because I don't know if he does B3 the same way, but based on the size of the lot, the value changes per square foot.
Yes, I heard him talk about that.
I struggle with that concept, but that's all another issue.
Yeah, and then also the construction per space, that number I've seen a lot lower by some metrics, and I've seen it as high as $20,000, but depending on where you put it. Now, that's nationwide numbers, so I would be curious to know what that cost is in Door County, and I don't know. Do we just go to Hockers and say, hey, we want to put a parking spot? How much does one parking spot cost? Because I don't think that number is gonna be meaningful.
But by the same token, if we put together a complex formula and then we run the actual numbers and it says every parking spot is $56,000, we probably don't want to go with that as a number.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is we should know roughly what our expense is. And if we choose to say, okay, we wanna put a 30-year amortization or 50-year amortization on that to bring the number down. Okay, but let's base it on what the cost is.
So it's not like you're advocating, let's come up with a formula, and I mean, this is not a bad formula, figure out a way to apply that formula to real numbers and see what the number looks like.
Yes,
So who does the figure out a way to apply that formula to real numbers piece?
So I mean, it just would be verified essentially as part of this right now, what we're discussing is whether or not, essentially there's policy buy-in in terms of having this, CPI adjustment formula as part of it. So if we're basing it off of this formula, there's no other variables. We would essentially just take the information and verify, use it for a real life example, essentially. And then calculate it out what that would be, bring it forward to the next meeting. Include some of the language that's included in here and see how we can actually codify it formally, and make it fit. But yeah, we bring, very similar spreadsheet with what would be available based off of what we're discussing here. So,
Yeah, I mean, as Skip said earlier, I'm aligned with them. Getting a formula so that it is something that's codified and not at the whims of whomever in the future, so it's predictable.
and the other thing is, do we want to have a maximum amount of fee in lieu that you can do?
You mean a maximum number of spaces or a maximum number per space?
a maximum number of spaces you can do. And I also think right now, we've got a saying you have to have it come to plan commission. I think it should be by right, or at least for a certain number, not having to get the approval of plan commission.
I think it should come to plan.
But if it's a small predictable amount, like say the first floor, you just do fee in lieu of, and after that, or the first 5% of overall.
It becomes more than that, it's probably a bigger discussion about the
Yeah.
business plan, and that's something that the commission might want to be dealing with. Yeah, I agree, that's where I was thinking, it's like 4 spots, and it's not.
Yeah, or something formulaic.
4 or 5 spots, I mean, like I have 5 spots written in here, but that's what I think is. And I guess, Bridget, I'd remind you what it was like to sit out there. It can be, we can be a little intimidating. So,
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of is there a way that could go wrong? Probably not. But I don't like, would it, like the one that came up on the corner where they had only 1 spot and there were 3 different things in there, like, that's only, that was probably 4 spots or less that they're paying a fee in lieu of, but would you guys have been totally fine with one person just signing off on that?
Well, if
Was
there's
it-
already a formula for determining how many spots are needed that is accurate. Yeah, I mean, then it's all, anything we can do that makes it black and white is easy.
Right, and so will we have wording in here that if it's a multi-use building and there's multiple tenants, is that a different thing?
I think we actually have that in our code right now. I
Okay.
mean, as we looked at the fee in lieu of when we applied it, we did not consider that for the residential unit.
But it applies to each business within the building. And Airbnb could be considered a business, so
Because it's lodging though, they had to have that 1 spot. They could never have taken that 1 spot.
Yeah, they couldn't fee.
but I'm saying it was a business activity,
Yeah.
so it felt as a third business.
I mean, it's fine, if we wanna set a minimum, that's fine, I'm just playing devil's advocate and how. Is there any situation where that wouldn't be okay?
We just have to go through and look at how parking spots are assigned for each business type. That's the only place it could go wrong. Whether it's restaurants or,
And if the cap is small, the impact to the village overall would end up being small.
Right, true.
So let's come back and I like my number of 5. If everybody else likes 4 better, it's not. 4 or 5 isn't that
it's
big.
not a
a
hill
deal.
to die on.
No,
Either way.
Yeah. But Ben, why don't you and I populate this? This formula, is there anything else you'd like to see added, subtracted to that formula?
No, I think we just have to be careful to keep the useful life of the parking realistic.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I know if you amortize it on 50 years.
Right, but when you were talking about different values, I mean, if you've gotta have curb and gutter and deal with sewers, that cost of parking is a lot more than just asphalt and.
Yeah. So like. We'd have to come up with like as honest of a number as we can. It's gonna probably be in the middle of the road as far as
Yeah.
what the cost's gonna be. Cause it always could cost more. I mean, if it's concrete, if you truly wanna have the thing last 50 or 100 years, you make a concrete, that costs a lot more money though. So.
No, in general, I think that what you come up with here is a really good start.
Thanks, Skip. Okay. We're good on that? Then let's move on to ADUs. So Plan Commission last touched ADUs, I think it was 2019. And Plan Commission was actually all on board for permitting ADUs. Until it was the interpretation was state statute said any residential unit had the inherent right to rent as a short-term rental. And that's what kind of the wheels fell off the ADU wagon there, and it stopped moving forward. So
And that is still currently in state statute.
it is, I think there's ways around it though. There are ways to deter that are not as direct. That's still a concern, and I think it's a valid concern for a lot of locations. The thing that when the short-term rental ordinances came up, I was always opposed to an ordinance that I read as plain English violating state statute. I mean, like, if, yes, you can enact it and you have to have somebody challenge you, and if they win, then that's thrown out the window. And I was never willing to go against something that would just make it, plain English reading would lose. I'm willing to get a little creative to try and mitigate some of that. And I would say there's a lot of things you can do incentivizing various things in ADUs, but I think the first question is, do we want to see ADUs? Or do we have questions about the benefits or what actually an ADU is and what's happening other places in the country?
What's the problem statement that we're trying to address by adding ADUs?
We need more housing units in the village.
And do we think ADUs addresses that?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, you look at other places where ADUs are happening. You know, you also have, I shouldn't say it's just about the housing units. Because you also have the other social impact of ADUs. I mean, you have people that can age in place. You know, that is a very, I mean, the term mother-in-law apartment comes from that. The reality is kids are not moving out. And you have multi-generational living in other ways too, that this addresses. And the cost of housing has obviously gone up, so you'd have more affordable units there. Without necessarily having an apartment complex. You know,
So you're considering these ADUs as a rental? More or less to the person that owns the home. They could feasibly rent it out to anybody, not just a family member.
depending on how we write this ordinance.
Well, that's
yeah.
what I'm asking, is that, what are you looking at?
I would like to have some form of ADU available, and I think that on long-term rentals, I think that that's a perfectly good option. I think that's beneficial to the community, and it brings more affordable housing, truly affordable housing to the village. I would like to dissuade short-term rentals from happening in that circumstance, because it's a totally different use case. And I think there's ways we can do that, I'm not saying somebody couldn't challenge, but there's ways we can write it, so if it was challenged, it would just evaporate. I mean, you know, all you do is say, okay, if this is challenged, then this ordinance no longer takes effect, so it's really a Pyrrhic victory. So if somebody wants to challenge you, say, no, I think I have the right to do this, and they in fact win, then the whole ordinance just evaporates, it goes away.
So does the ADU have to meet all other building requirements? Setbacks,
Yeah.
sizes, everything else?
And ADUs can be standalone, or they can be attached. And one thing I've seen with a lot of other ADUs is there's typically a maximum size, which is, I think, is important, because it's usually a function of a percentage of the main structure or so many square feet.
Something saying you're like 500 to 1,200 square feet, or?
That was what the standard
Oh,
language
that
that
was
was
the example,
included.
okay. I didn't imagine it, good, okay.
So I
Not
would
to
say
exceed the primary structure.
Yeah. So historically, downtown and on 42 on Bay Shore Drive, I mean, a lot of what comes up here is those little accessory cottages that are in addition to the main residence. So people used to build their house, and then they built like 2 little accessory cottages, and the family would come up and stay in those ones. So it was like a very common practice, and I think kind of cool. I think where, yeah, the biggest issue with saying yes to something like that is you would have to do it very carefully if you don't want them to be STRs. And it looks like other communities have outlawed legally operating an STR in an accessory dwelling unit. It says in Wisconsin, an accessory dwelling unit does not automatically have a guaranteed right to be a short-term rental.
That may have
ADU
changed.
is strictly governed by local municipal ordinances, but I was gonna say, you would for sure wanna consult a group of lawyers, because if you allow these, and people start building them, and then you get one person who pushes back and sues and they win, every single one will be allowed to be an SC. So I think they're a great idea if you cannot, I mean, I don't have a huge problem with STRs, obviously, but I don't know that you want one in every single backyard.
And that's the potential option.
Yeah, the intensification of use for a short-term rental versus even a 30-day rental is much greater because you're having that many more people come in and out and the like. I think that we obviously consult legal on that, but I also think you can also incentivize it through other ways, even if that's not outright permitted. We can't explicitly say we're not allowing this. I would say you can, one thing I'd look at is waiving parking requirements for that longer term rental.
Well, there would have to be parking on site.
They'd have to have some parking on site, but they don't necessarily need more parking on site, because if it's, especially in the village, you may have somebody that doesn't have a car living in there.
So I think one of the things we'd have to carefully look at is which districts we allow it in.
I would actually argue for all districts.
Well, R4, I don't think we should have.
Well, okay, except for R4 is probably R4 is,
Because we're already down to 20% green space and you just put up another building.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's already meant to be small
yes,
housing units, so.
I hadn't considered R4 because R4 is also entirely owned by the village. Right now. So, yes. But I actually think this is also applicable in business districts.
Business districts already are allowed to have employee housing.
Not in all of them, I don't.
And
believe.
not all,
Yeah.
but
And
we dealt with that.
I think that's where the size limit comes in play. Because you don't wanna see commercial not be commercial. But if they can put on a 400 square foot apartment. To have somebody live there, I mean, that is a huge challenge for the businesses. We're still seeing places closing 2 days a week because they don't have work, they don't have people to work there. So it'll just be another tool to get that, to have that option. So,
Can I speak?
yes, Maine,
Mary Pat Carlson. And this is the reason that I'm here is because of the possibility of something like this happening. My husband and I live on Scandia Road. My husband Mark was born here 78 years ago. His dad ironically used to have a gas station and repair shop where Chop is now. So there was an auto repair place there. My mother-in-law Helen was a librarian in town here for 40 years. And we run and operate Door County Railroad Market. But we're 78 years old and our health is starting to fail. And we have one daughter who is willing to somehow find a way to live with us and her husband and her child, but we have a 2-bedroom house. And we really need to have that opportunity to stay in Sister Bay, to remain an operating business here, and to have them become a multi-generational family. And I hope that you look at me and realize that this is one of the people that would benefit from something like that. And I've already kind of been exploring, how do we add on to our house? I have walking issues, so we don't want to have stairs and be going up. You know, we don't want to build above a garage and try to figure out a way to get up there. So, and we have a lot and a half where our house is, so we have plenty of buffer around us. But what you're considering is, this would impact us a lot. And we'd be able to stay in our community and not have to try to figure out where because if we sell our house, what are we gonna buy? There's nothing we could afford. We have a little 2-bedroom Wausau home right now. So we're not, we can't flip-flop to something different. So thank you.
thank you.
So is there a way, I'm just thinking out loud, Has there ever been a situation where if somebody builds an accessory dwelling unit, and I'm not saying that we do this, but if you give them the permit to do that, could they sign something that says they'll not short-term rent it in perpetuity?
That would be it. So.
I know
it's
that is a
not-
big legal question, right? Like,
So I mean, ultimately, that is something that would be somewhat of a private enterprise. That would be part of, you know, a restrictive covenant, that would be part of a deed restriction. That would be required as part of it. It can be done, you know, and I'd have to look at the legal landscape to see if there was something that overturned it. Most of them, from what I've reviewed, it's that you can somewhat put on restrictions on timing, so like for the one that was proposed here was, you know, 6 months out of the year, it needs to be, you know, owner occupied, for example. And that the other 6 months, it could be something that it wouldn't necessarily be owner occupied. So just outright restricting it, does not appear to be an option at this time. That would be something where it would be specifically to the homeowner to put on the deed restriction based on them residing as an owner or upon sale.
So I think that that's something that we can, something we need to dig into for next month, though, to see, figure out where the plan commission's at, and then answer some of these questions. So, I mean, I know that there are places and times where the municipality is a party to the deed restriction. It's not terribly common, but it does happen. Because usually if there's a deed restriction, it's not, the municipality is not the one enforcing it. But in this case, that would kind of be important.
I think it would be better to figure out a way to do this without having to go to that level.
right, yeah, really, you don't want to do like, I never want to restrict people's personal property rights. Like, if you're gonna let them do something, let them do something, you know, like. But I know that everyone is very concerned about. Sure.
Yeah, and I think what it is it's the conversation we had years ago was, okay, we want this to happen, but now. Everybody in my neighborhood adds an ADU, now we've got all that extra traffic coming and going.
Well, the other thing that happens when you've got the STR market is they drive the prices beyond what can be afforded.
It's happening in my neighborhood right now. My next door neighbor, the person behind us, every time. See, I don't necessarily agree with how they reassess the properties, because when somebody wants a short-term rental home, they are usually willing to pay a couple $100,000 over asking. And then I look at their assessment and it's not going up, which in other places, if you sell a house and make a bigger profit on it, your assessment usually goes up to meet at least close to that sale price. But the way we do it here is he averages the whole village. So I can sit in my home and in 4 or 5 years, it doubled in value. Well, that's great, except I'm not selling it. So that value doesn't really mean anything to me until I'm dead and gone. And the short-term rental thing, I think, has a place. I don't think it should have been put in neighborhoods. We had a deed restriction in our neighborhood. The state overrode it. So I don't know if you have a deed restriction for an ADU for Sister Bay, if the state can't in the future come along and say, we're not gonna address your deed restriction, we're gonna do what we want. So I don't know how you're gonna get around that, because the state kind of has the final say on who has the right to do whatever they want with their property.
I mean, ultimately, the state could just decide to undo any number of things.
Oh, I agree.
I understand that there's some things we can see coming to try and avoid, but sometimes we can't think about every permutation about what the state could do. But we can try and mitigate some of that. I think there's ways we can do, if we wanted to get a little creative, that we could make it how I perceive you have to do is you have to incentivize people to not have that be an ADU. You didn't have increased.
You mean not an STR?
I mean, yes, yeah. Too many acronyms. For you could reduce setbacks, you could reduce parking requirements, you give somebody something if they agreed not to be an STR. That's it's a difference between a taking and a giving, and that's a very big difference legally. Because you're. It's one thing if you have to meet these requirements, and if you agree to something else, your requirements become lower, that's been. Been acceptable in the state in the past.
No, so one thing I don't think we should do is start playing with setbacks, because all of a sudden. In the districts we have. We're affecting the housing or the people around them more than we probably realize we are.
Well,
In the, you know, I mean, in the small square footage that are proposed here seem very reasonable. For something that's attached or fits on those properties.
sure, but I guess what the other thing you could do, Skip, is you could say, okay, to have an ADU of this many square feet, you need to have a so many foot setback. And then reduce that after you set your setback. You'd set the setback higher than the current setback for an ADU. And then if you follow what I'm saying.
Okay, I didn't, so now I do, yeah.
There's ways you can, and any number of things you can throw at that, you can.
I think we're still talking about accessory structures though, so I think that, I know we can define it differently.
Yeah. So is this something, I mean, is there consensus, this is something we want to do, and the biggest concern here is that short-term rentals, is that fair? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think at a high level, yeah.
I mean, there's gonna be, when we make this sausage, there's gonna be a lot going into it.
And that's what we've got to really be careful with.
Yeah, but to start
The
with,
concept is good. I think we have to identify what the true target markets are. If it's affordable housing, that's one thing. If it's additional family space, I just had a conversation with somebody last week that would benefit from an ADU, but isn't looking at property in this village, looking at Bailey's Harbor because he can do it there.
Mhm.
And they would much rather be here. So
there's another gentleman that reached out to me last week when he saw this on there, talking about, well, he wants to put an ADU above his garage for his family. And right now he can't do that. So there's a lot of things. I mean, reality is if this goes extremely well with the village, maybe you add 20 dwelling units. That's still 20 more dwelling units you'd otherwise get.
And where I was starting to go with that is if we're picking certain target markets, that probably affects or not affects, that probably helps us design how the whole thing goes together. Families are different than employees, are different than just, you know, attracting.
Yeah, this
Same
really gets
goes
to
to-
that problem statement, what are we trying to solve, and then structure it to
Yeah.
meet that problem statement.
I personally, I say getting more housing units. But it sounds like. And I don't, maybe this is that when we start making the sausage, we really drill down on that. To say what is even possible, because the short-term rental restriction is gonna be something we have to have an answer to before we start. Going down that path.
Absolutely. I
Well,
think
especially
that's
if the home, I mean, the home presently could be a short-term rental. And then if they add an ADU onto it, you're gonna tell them, now you can't have a short-term rental.
And
So, I
of
mean,
the-
that would be an issue, I would think.
Yeah. I think the other thing we could say is that the rules could be different if one of the units is owner occupied.
It is something that does come up frequently as part of it, that it can be specifically allowable for an SDR if it's owner occupied, and then that's a condition of it as well.
So Ben, I haven't let you talk.
No, I mean, I think it is a good idea. I mean, I've come across a few projects where, you know, I don't necessarily know what they're gonna come in talking about. They talk about that they are potentially looking at putting in an accessory dwelling unit in some fashion, and, you know, it stops the conversation short, saying, you know, it's not allowed currently at this time. So there is certainly, in terms of interest in the community for this, I think it is that balance of how how we put on the requirements, because it is something that can be regulated, it's just something about how we build that to accommodate what you're saying, Skip, in terms of the end target. So what is the goal, and then how do we build on the restrictions around it? To make it equitable so that the folks that do own property can use it for whether they want it for that mother-in-law suite, or, you know, if it is allowable, that it's responsibly used for an STR if it cannot be wholly restricted. You know, but it's just building around it. So there are other codes that are out there, and there's some that would specify, you know, what it looked like for the short-term rental issue as well.
So. What we're all gonna do a little more research on our own, we're gonna consult with the attorneys,
Yeah, well,
see what it looks like. I just looked up how many, I don't know how accurate it says, how many single-family detached homes are in Sister Bay, Wisconsin. It says 482, does that sound right?
it's a little higher than that, but that's,
Well, it says there's almost 1,400 total units, but the single-family detached are 42. So about 500, so at most, we would have 580 units in the village.
$4.99, I'm not putting one on.
But
Actually, I already did.
I'm saying, and obviously.
But don't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Well, there's a,
you know,
yeah, it's interesting. If there weren't, I mean, if there was no short-term rental problem, I would say, yeah, for sure. But I think we definitely need to look into it.
that's the first hurdle. Is
Right. Yeah, because I mean, some people, yeah, like you said, I've heard where they just wanted to add living quarters over their garage for when their family comes to stay. Like their daughter and her, you know, son-in-law and kids. And they're in bedrooms currently, but they were not allowed to do that because. For whatever reason, they had, you know. Whatever the rules are with the code, they weren't allowed to do it. And they were really bummed about it.
So any thoughts on size? I mean, that's something that could play into this as well. I picture ADU as small.
Yeah,
In my head, that's what
I
I'm
was gonna say,
Doesn't it depend on the size of the lot too?
Well, I'm saying in my head, you put a cap on it and then a percentage of the main structure.
Okay.
and if you're looking at, in like the proposal here, or at least what was shown to us was, you know, 2 people max. That targets a specific group of people, whether it's family or, you know, employee without full family. Single employee,
So
then the small size makes sense.
I think 1 bedroom, because I don't like regulating people. Cause you can't, like, you literally put the village in there in the position of going.
No, but it said, you know, 2 bedrooms is like, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I wouldn't do 1 bedroom. That's like, if anyone with a child, you just eliminated them.
So then 2 bedrooms and in my head, it was gonna be something like 800 square feet or 50% of the main structure.
Principal structure.
Yeah. 800 square feet is not massive, it's not super small, but it's,
I like the 1,200 that was in there, because it's, you could have a nice, comfortable 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot house.
yeah, but is that really an ADU then?
Probably the upper end.
I mean, if that's our target, I'm fine with that, but if that's really what our target is.
If you're making it full living. I mean, those houses that we're looking at on south of town, we're down in that 700 range for 2-bedroom units. So 800 or 900, I think is.
Is there any other restrictions we can think of in the front? We're gonna come up with other stuff as we go through this, but
I think we need to tie in the parking requirement, because right now in the code, accessory buildings don't require any additional parking, so if you're adding extra people, it should probably follow the same residential formula with parking spots per number of bedrooms that's in there.
I I would not wanna see it increase more than one spot.
I was
Maybe
thinking one.
One
Yeah,
spot.
that's- I think the formula would do one for a 2-bedroom. But I didn't look. I just saw that there's a formula, that's residential, and we wanna tie into that.
Okay.
I think like stuff like septic or sewer connection requirements, that's all covered under other code, we wouldn't have to have anything special for that, correct?
So on page 58, number 2, the principal dwelling must be a single-family detached dwelling. If they could add that onto their home and hook up all the utilities and stuff like that, why does it have to be a single family separate?
As opposed to like a duplex or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it would be if you, but you're either gonna have 2 homes on one parcel, or you're gonna have a duplex in a residential, single family. So,
I don't,
what, it says
this
it must be
helps.
a single family detached.
The principal dwelling must be a single family detached.
Why?
Well, that's just what's listed there, but I think this is just an example, right? This is not the proposed change.
Yes, this is from, when we're talking about code that, also had some issues with, STR, it would be, Dane County, would be an example. So this was essentially taken from Dane County as an example of some language that could be incorporated into our code, and, it's really meant to show some of the different mechanisms that could be pulled for the code to change around and meet the objectives that we're looking for. So there is, attached, structures as well that can be included. It just depends whether or not that's something that is wanted as part of it. There's also, it's less common, but there's also internal, accessory dwelling units as well. But the most common that we'd be talking about is for the detached.
I think that we should allow attached or detached for the ADU.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, what you're referring to is, like the basement apartments they did all over Chicago.
Yes, I mean, the less, it's not really, wouldn't really fit here, but yes, attached or detached, and then technically there's the internal.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that probably cost will help drive some of that because attached is certainly gonna be less expensive than detached. Is
Yeah.
fully freestanding and.
I think for that bullet point that you guys are talking about, unless I read it wrong, I thought that meant that it could only be done when the primary structure was a single family detached home, not a condo, not an
Correct.
apartment, not a duplex. The original structure has to be a single family detached home. But the accessory structure could be built either next to it as its own building or attached to it. That was my interpretation.
that's how I read it too, but I'm
Yeah.
just clarifying to say it, so what we're talking about is attached or detached, it doesn't,
Because I read it the other way.
Okay.
you know. Okay. Just trying to think of any other direction we can take. I mean, we want a pretty broad stroke on what we're doing here, but,
I do like the intentionality of the 2-bedroom that was presented here because it limits the impact.
Versus a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, you start doing a 3-bedroom,
Oh, that's-
whatever, it's,
it's not an ADU.
Yeah.
Just a,
Right,
if the intent is keeping it small and for specific uses, then those kind of restrictions, those kind of guidelines helpful.
mhm.
I see in here, they've got a height restriction of 25 feet. I don't know that that's something to. I think practically speaking, it's not going to, I don't know.
I think not exceeding the principal structure height is probably a better. restriction. Because that allows over a garage or allows, you know,
Sure.
even a freestanding garage could be added on to over it.
Then what do we think about trying to find a bonus if there's or somehow incentivizing the owner occupied? I see that as a benefit to this. To something that we want to encourage, to say if somebody lives there and they've had this ADU, I think that's better than having somebody own a house and.
So where I think that falls down is if the primary owners or somebody, you know, the property changes hands out of the family.
I've always been leery of having any regulation that says, by the village, it says it has to be family occupied. I'm going down the same
What I'm
vein.
saying is you give the
Yeah.
benefit to the first person, but then it changes hands and now they just rent it out to anybody. So, you know, all of a sudden that give back.
So I'm hearing you say just don't consider that as a.
Correct.
Okay, it's not. It won't survive first contact.
Yeah. It's gonna put,
So what is that first bullet in the proposed wording, is that not legally enforceable? It said the principal dwelling or accessory dwelling must be owner occupied for at least 6 months a year. Does that not cover that?
Well, that does, but I think what Skip was saying is as soon as that the house changes hands.
what Dan was,
But then
he
it's
was
then it's the
saying
new
was,
owner.
if you give somebody building it. Like reduce setbacks or something like that, well, that's great in that situation. But if the property changes hands, the new owners could just use it for whatever.
But wouldn't the new owner still have to, oh, because it's a permit? I see.
Yeah, it's a permanent thing that doesn't have anything to do with the use.
Yeah, the new owner doesn't have to stay there 6 months a year because they're not signing the permit to build it, it's just there.
Once it's built, it's built. It's there. Well, I'm sure that Dane County has something, some way they're dealing with that, or maybe they just ignored it too. I think it's worth digging on that then.
Yeah. On the 6-month thing.
Yeah, just in general, the owner occupied status, like how that actually works
Yeah.
out, because you would. You're right, if you give somebody, let's just say you reduce their setbacks and now they built it. When it's no longer owner occupied, you don't make a move, structure doesn't move.
Right.
It's there, so you'd have to have some other. If there is anything at all you can do, it would have to be something that is not durable.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Incentive comes off somewhere else.
Could you, we'll take that offline. There's a couple things I can think of on how to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm just taking a peek at some planning website.
Keeping just a long-term rental option makes it more palatable to me as a use besides just family, which you can't restrict that, but
Yeah. For the state of Wisconsin, long-term rental means 30 days or more. And I don't know that we can do much about that, because there's some part of me that would like to see that be 90 days, because that's some. There are people that would rent a unit for 30 days to come up and,
for the weekend.
yeah, for the weekend or for part of the summer.
But at least it wouldn't be going through a million, you know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be every week, but it would be. I like the idea of a long-term rental. I mean, if there are employees in the village that are looking for a place to stay, I mean, we have some small cottages right next to us. We have like a waiting list of people
Well,
waiting to put their
the
employees
other
there.
thing that you would have is the workaround is a business renting it and then rotating employees through it. And
I think seasonally though, I mean, once you've got your employees for the summer, turning them over is not the goal.
Yeah.
I mean,
what
you
I'm
want-
saying is what we're really trying to target here is longer term housing, not just employee housing for high turnover.
To your point, Skip, somebody could take that 2-bedroom, stick 2 bunk beds in each room. Now there's 8 employees housed there, and that's maybe not the intent of what we're trying to
Right.
accomplish.
I mean, I keep kind of going back to all the conversations we had when we structured the last planned unit development. All the workarounds that were still possible.
There's always gonna be some way to work around it. All you can do is mitigate it. I mean, there's all.
Right, and that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying is we need to,
On the flip side, you don't wanna limit the really good uses, just
Correct.
because you're trying to.
you wanna focus it toward the proper use.
yeah. No, I think we've got some direction here. I think we got enough we can come
Yeah.
back with.
Yeah, I think so as well.
You have any other, you have questions, Ben? Anything else you want clarification on?
No, I think that is good. I think some things are gonna have to be, a little bit of legal direction on what is and is not allowable. In the state of Wisconsin currently, or what can be restricted or incentivized, but, I think those are questions for Randy that will be answered when they're proposed, so.
Yeah, I'll do what I do with Randy. I'll ask him the same question 5 different ways until. the answer
To get the answer you want.
Yeah. So,
Well,
okay,
you have to know that because the law with all of these things it changes every single year. So no matter what you just, what we decide and what you do, if you have ADUs, which I do think is a good idea, at some point in 10 years, there may be a law that supersedes the rules that we set in place that would allow things to happen that we didn't plan for. So you just have to kind of go into it knowing that.
yeah, there's always gonna be unintended consequences. Okay. Moving on to 7 or 6. Annual permit log? Is that monthly permit log?
Yeah, so it's just the working copy of the permit log that was sent last week in a separate email communication.
Any questions on that? Friday, I don't know, Monday.
I see Friday at 11:44 a.m.
Okay.
I think the intent of this agenda item isn't for us to go through each of these every month, but more that it's available for us if we have questions.
It's for
yeah,
us, so we
we
can
have
be
questions.
familiar with
What's
what's
happening.
going on,
Yep.
yeah.
So I was about to move on since we didn't have questions, so. Okay, moving on to 7, executive session. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19851G. To confer with legal counsel for a governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. Zoning permit application, accessory building. Okay, I'll make a motion. Reconvene into executive session. Motion by Bell,
Second,
second by Heidler. Roll call.
Or
I voted.
Bell, yes?
white, yeah.
Arts, yes.
Okay, we are in closed session, so let's take a minute here. I'm gonna take 5 here and we'll reconvene if you want to hand out documentation, Ben.
Yep, I can move it down.
It's the same thing you come out, right?
Yes, then there's just an additional, so yes, there is that, and then there's just something just on closed session etiquette.
Me, you anticipate this being long?
We'll direct staff to do what we discussed. For that, on to item 8. Matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to committee, official or employee. We have anything?
I mean, we had the items we talked about earlier, but those were captured earlier.
Okay. Then our next meeting is July 28th. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Adler, second by Hart. All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Please go back.